Google has the power to rig the election. They've been caught rigging the election already, not just in the United States, but meddling in Ireland and meddling in Brazil. And, this is the technocracy. This is the biggest threat that we face in America right now is Google. We're going to stop the censorship on YouTube. So the fascists of 100 years ago burned books. And the fascists of today burn bits. Every single time a video gets deleted off of YouTube, every single time a site gets delisted from the Google index, that's an act of burning bits. And so we're going to stop the burning of bits with our Stop Bit Burning campaign.
Welcome everyone, I'm Spiro. Thanks for tuning in. In case you missed it, my last report was censored by YouTube. The video was only up for about 30 minutes before it was removed, but you can still see it right now at activistpost.com and on BitChute. I then uploaded the video to Twitter and immediately had my account locked, but I got it back. But going forward, we're going to talk about more censorship here and the social engineers in general. And joining me today to discuss this is Zach Vohries, who is a Google whistleblower. You can find him at zachvohries.com. Zach, thanks so much for being my guest today.
Thank you. And if people want to find me on Twitter, look up Perpetual Maniac.
Absolutely. I'll be sure to leave links to anything and everything you'd like in the show notes below. You do have a huge following on Twitter. You're always very active on there, and I follow your account. It's a great account. Now, Google is perhaps the most powerful and influential corporation on the planet at this point. And for those who might not be familiar with your story, what was your position at Google and how long did you work there?
So I worked at the company for 8.5 years. The first sort of section that I worked there was for the Google Earth team. And then I left to start a company called Zackies.com. It's a cycling bicycle glove, actually, with LEDs on the back. And that company's still running, but I made a lot more money working for, corporate tech. So I went back to Google and worked at their YouTube division, working on the embedded YouTube app that is on the game consoles, that's on the TVs. Specifically, I worked on the NX Switch and the Xbox and a little bit of the PS4 port of the YouTube embedded app.
Now, being at Google, you were essentially in the belly of the beast, and you had access to all sorts of internal and confidential information not available to the public. What did you uncover there at Google that made you decide to come forward, blow the whistle, and walk away from what many would consider a very high-paying dream job?
Right. So I want to say that working at Google/YouTube, which is owned by Google, was a dream. And everything that you've heard about the company and how great it is to its employees is 100% true. It wasn't until I came back to Google working for the YouTube division that I immediately saw that there was problems. It was about 3 months after I got hired. So I got hired in August of 2016, and then the elections happened in November of 2016. And I was so done with politics at that point that I had checked out. I didn't vote for Clinton. I didn't vote for Trump. I didn't vote for anyone. I thought it was just a crap show. So, and then to my surprise, really, Trump won. And I was like, oh, cool, that's great. A change up. Maybe we'll have, some differences now. And I thought I was just going to return back to Google and people would be upset, but that's just politics and we would move on. Wow, I couldn't be more wrong. Google was freaking out. The employees were freaking out, the management was freaking out, the C-level executives were freaking out, and it all came to a head when they had a meeting about 1 week after the election. And in this meeting, they said some really inappropriate things for the C-level executives, saying that, for example, Sergey Brin, the founder, said that he was personally offended at the election of Donald Trump, and that he thought that this nationalism would just be like a blip on the screen in history. The CFO recounted how she was having a discussion with the New York office about how they were going to lose this election. And I'm like, lose this election? It's not Google's to lose. It's the American people's election. But the most shocking thing for me, and it actually went over most of everybody else's head, the significance, was a question asked by the CEO, Sundar Pichai, about what the most effective thing that Google had done during the election. And his response was very troubling. He said that it was the suppression of fake news by their machine learning algorithms, and that they were going to be expanding on that. And I went, wait a minute, we're filtering fake news? Like, when was that decision made? Because, you know, their mission statement is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. When did Google get into the business of filtering fake news? So I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to figure out what this fake news definition is, because I just like to research. It's kind of my deal. So I just start like browsing through the company, and keep in mind, Google was a very open company because of Eric Schmidt. And so as a result, I can just go and look at what other teams are doing. So I started looking at what the fake news team was doing. And they actually had like, I use the term team loosely, but they had like an organization that was generating design documents on defining what exactly fake news was. And when I looked through the definitions, it turned out that like 4 out of 5 all had to do with Hillary Clinton. And I was just like, wait a minute. Is this about filtering fake news, or is this about, you know, helping a candidate? It seemed to be like it was a political play. And so I thought to myself, well, if there's, you know, such a thing as fake news that's going to be defined at the company, then there's going to be something that executes the fake news classification and removes them from the search, the YouTube, the Google News. And so I sought to try to find out what that project was, and I found it. And the name of the project was called Machine Learning Fairness. And over the course of a couple of years, I gathered intelligence on this from within inside the company with publicly available documents. And when I was grabbing them, I was just grabbing them for myself, because at the time I was like, no one's going to believe this. This is really out there, but I need to have physical evidence for myself so that I know that I'm not going crazy. I saw Google essentially start doing seditious activities against the president. They deleted a word out of the Arabic dictionary, kafefe, in order to play into the media's attempt to use the 25th Amendment. And I went, wow, this is sedition. This is, you know, treasonous. And now, because I know about it, and if I don't say anything, then I'm part of the conspiracy via silence. So that's when I realized that I had to step forward. I had to contact someone that was trustworthy within the media in order to disclose this to the public, no matter what the costs of that would be. And that's how I got connected with Project Veritas. And so they did a sting operation, and the rest is history.
And for those who may not be aware, the kafefe that you're referring to was a tweet that Trump put out, and they tried to basically make him look like he's not mentally there, you know, that he's like losing it. That's why they censored that word, removed it from history, basically, and try to, like you said, build their case for the 25th Amendment to remove him for being, you know, not having the mental capacity there. I mean, that's incredible to see and to hear. And I am going to leave a link for the Project Veritas reports. They're fantastic. They're a great organization that where they had you on their programs. Now, you ended up taking information, like 950 plus pages of information from Google, and they were in your possession. And how did Google find out about this? What was your, you know, like, how did that all go down after? Like, what was their response after you had taken this information from Google?
Well, I knew that there was going to be a log file because we're all logged. But I also know that because of the overwhelming amount of data and the relative immaturity of AI, they can't really figure out what the signal is from the noise. So I knew that once I came out, that there was a good chance, even anonymously, that Google would be able to quickly triangulate my position. And that's actually what happened. So when I came out on Project Veritas in June of 2019, I was under the cover of anonymity. So I had a hat and a, kind of a poncho like thing. And I didn't reveal, and my voice was changed. So I didn't reveal who I was. And what my intentions was I was just going to leak enough so that it would show the people that were accusing Google of being biased that there was literally something there, and that they could then use that in order to find out more information. But I had a debate about whether to disclose the whole thing. And so I actually didn't know what to do. So I actually just prayed about it. And I got this overwhelming feeling that I should just like not disclose anymore and just walk away and just continue on with my life, because there was some anger and resentment that I had that because Google was trying to essentially overthrow the country. So I felt that that was a vengeful act to just release all the information. So I walked away. And then they set a really high-priced legal firm after my ass in order to try to get all the information that I had. I guess they're able to kind of figure out that it was me that was, doing all this within a couple weeks. So that letter arrived, and then I was like, oh boy, I'm in trouble. And I talked to a few lawyers, and they're like, oh yeah, they're going to ruin your life now. They're going to essentially drain you of a whole bunch of funds. And I looked at this and I realized that I did not want to get involved into a court of law. I'd rather step into the court of public opinion. So I prayed about it again. And this time I got this overwhelming feeling that I should just let them have it. So I don't know if that was God or what exactly happened. I just know that that was the overwhelming message that I got when I prayed really hard about it. And so what I did is I called up James O'Keefe and I said, look, they're after me now. There's also an anonymous troll that I was able to trick into hitting a link that we controlled. And we were able to see that the IP was actually originating from Google. This is how dumb they are. They literally sent a troll that was from the Google Indianapolis office. And they were trying to harass me and out me and call out my name because I was all anonymous on Twitter, that I was the leaker. So I knew bad things were on my way. So I set up a dead man switch. I said, James O'Keefe, if I die, then all documents go into the public domain. I then go to Twitter and I post essentially the same thing. And there's a it's still up there. There's a picture of a dragon that's about to kill a guy. He's got him wrapped up in his tail, and then it's the last finishing blow. The guy stabs the dragon in the heart. That was my message to Google. Hey, you do this, and you whack me, and everything's going to come out.
And that's not pardon the interruption, Zach. You're not being dramatic when you say this. I mean, this is a very, very powerful organization, wealthy beyond anyone's imagination, powerful, and like you said, they are politicized at this point, and you're about to expose major corruption and just all kinds of things that Google kept very close to themselves, that they did not want out in the public. So when I don't think you're being dramatic or blowing this up at all by any means when you say that you were fearing for your life. I can only imagine.
Oh yeah, people. There's actually been a lot of plane crashes in the Bay Area, and a lot of suspicious deaths of CEOs and stuff and founders. And so I had no qualms. I'm dealing with huge firepower. Google has a lockdown on the technology of the freaking globe, and I'm challenging that established power. And the only thing that I have as leverage is the fact that I can kind of trigger an awakening by revealing what Google's doing to, the common person that's still asleep about this. So I let them know that they were going to walk into a trap if they did anything. Sure enough, 4 hours later, the cops were at my house trying to get a wellness check on me. And I was like, hey, I'm not going to answer the door, right? They don't know that I'm here. Well, they somehow figured that I was there anyway, so they just set up watch, and maybe they were tracking my cell phone. I'm not entirely sure, but they just assumed that I was there and then shut down the streets from 20th in Valencia to 22nd in Valencia. They used a flimsy excuse to call in a bomb threat and get the bomb squad at my house. What had happened was my roommate, who's super hot, she like does all these like stage performances at like Burning Man and these festivals around California. That's like her gig. And she had left a canister of denatured alcohol that she uses in her fire poi. And so it was this canister that was in a bag. It was like in a brown paper bag. And they looked at it and they said, oh, that could be like an incendiary device. So we got to make sure that it's not like a bomb. So they called in a freaking bomb squad on me. And so I remember I was sitting on my bed trying to get my mind off of all this, playing some video games to just, think about something else. When I started to hear this like helicopter, like encircling the house, and it started to get closer, and I was like, no, that would be paranoid to believe that this helicopter is for me. And so I kept on playing the video game, even though my adrenaline was now like raising. And now I hear this other helicopter come. So now there's like 2 helicopters flying low over my house. And so I get down on my hands and knees and I crawl next to a window because I'm like on the 2nd floor. So like I'm not at street level. I'm above looking down on everyone, and I'm able to like get to a window and look up, and there's like a helicopter like just hovering. And I'm like, this could actually be for me. And then I actually got a phone call from my friend who decided that he was going to come visit me and saw that the whole street was blocked off. And he talked to the cops and found out that they were there for me. So now he's calling me, trying to talk me out of the house. It's like, I'm talking to them. They're going to set up shifts. They're going to be here for 3 days. And so I decided at one point that, whatever they were going to do, they were going to do. So I might as well do it out in the public with everyone filming their cameras, and then good luck with if they try to do something funny for them to erase all that video. So I talked to the police over the phone. I negotiated to come out. I came out, recording with the phone in my hand, which I told them ahead of time that I would do. They gave me permission to go ahead and do that. And there's video actually of me like coming out, sticking my hands up, turning around, putting them behind my head, and then them like detaining me, searching me, and then finally asking me a bunch of questions like, do I want to do any self-harm or kill myself, or do I want to like do any harm to anyone at YouTube? And then finally, and I assumed that it was Google, but I didn't have confirmed evidence until it was the police themselves as the final question asking me, well, why would Google call in this wellness check? And I said, aha, I knew that this is what they were doing to me, and so I said, well, the reason why they would do this is because I'm blowing the whistle on what Google's doing. And I just sent 950 pages to the Department of Justice Antitrust Division. And the cop was like, do you have any evidence of this? And I said, yeah. And I pulled out my phone and I showed it to him. And on the phone was a picture of the letter that I had sent to the DOJ describing the contents of this dossier that I was sending them. So they were like, oh, okay, you're a whistleblower. And, they realized that I wasn't a bad guy, that they were just being used by Google. And I didn't really blame them. I wasn't really upset at them. They're just people doing their jobs.